That intro certainly hits a little bit differently today. I'd say it's Natalie G. Winters here in the War Room hosting. I'm still always going to say filling in for Stephen K. Bannon for these next, maybe 4 months to today, July 1st, in the year of our Lord 2024, a day that will live in infamy. And I've used that term intentionally throughout the show. We'll get into what is happening with Steve. I'll give you my thoughts, but as you know, the core thesis of this show, both in rhetoric and in practice, is that we will not be fazed by these attacks. It's the next man, or in this case, woman, up. We are going to focus on the news because you know what? They want us to be distracted. There's a reason Steve doesn't really talk about a lot of what's been going on with this court case and all things, the January 6th committee, because it's not the thing itself. The thing itself is deconstructing the administrative state, which I promise you, like I promised to Steve, and I guess what was my last conversation for a little bit with him, at least through normal communication methods, that we will deconstruct the administrative state. One of the first speeches I ever saw Steve give, he ended it to, of course, a thunderous applause. And he said, when you set out to take Vienna, take Vienna. Well, you know what? Steve set out to take Vienna by taking down the administrative state. And for these next 4 months and for years to come, we will take Vienna. We will take down the administrative state. You guys have severely overplayed your hand in thinking that this is going to shut War Room up, because it's not. And I realize I have a couple months to get the rants down and give you all my thoughts on everything that's going on. But I'd be remiss to not start today's show off without showing you the, let's say, righteous indignation that is felt in the War Room today and across this country, and frankly, across the world. We're lucky to have Ben Harnwell joining us. Speaking of what is happening across the world, we're going to get into all things France and how this, populist movement is really extending and expanding beyond just the borders of the United States. But Ben, I want to give you a chance to just remark on, what has happened today from your perch over in Rome. Your thoughts, sir.
Hey, Natalie. Good afternoon to you. Look, Steve Bannon is a political prisoner. And that's not me saying this. This is the editorial of the Washington Times back on, I think, June the 10th, the day after the epoch-changing European elections. That's the truth. That Steve Bannon is a political prisoner. This is the Biden corrupt DOJ FBI complex turning the United States into a banana republic. There is some good out of this, Natalie. And that Steve is basically offering himself forward as a sacrificial lamb here, but he's setting in front of the whole nation here, effectively, as did Peter Navarro, a precedent that can now be followed. If the Americans had a genuinely responsive Republican Party, if the GOP actually represented the interests of its members and voters, and as opposed to just going through the motions of doing that in purely performative terms. If it actually had a genuine, serious GOP, they should be issuing subpoenas. Their only work now, what do they have? A majority of one. Instead of principal legislative battles, they should be issuing dozens of their committees, should be issuing dozens and dozens of subpoenas every single day, left, right, and center. Listen, Natalie, I have a friend, you know her as well. I think she spent like a couple of €100,000 of her own money just because she was called to appear before the Mueller committee, right? It's expensive. I just did this myself after 5 years of criminal investigations here in Italy on totally spurious charges. That's what the prosecution said just before I was acquitted by the judge. Defending yourself against political prosecutions is expensive business, right? I was one of these people who thought and believed that what we really need now is to reduce the temperature in the United States, not in America, but in America, and get the FBI, get the DOJ back to normal in a non-politicalized, weaponized form. I've changed my mind. Absolutely not, right? If the machinery of this corrupt state falls into the hands of Donald Trump on November the 5th. He should use the DOJ and the FBI to do exactly what they have done to to Joe Biden's political enemies and do it back, right? That is what I think. As I say, the various committees in Congress should be issuing subpoenas to the left, right, and centre, right? Because they actually have the power to do this for now. They should be issuing subpoenas left, right, and centre. Drill down on the CCP, which is something close to your heart. Drill down on election interference, which Mike Lindell's been covering so fantastically over the last 2 years. Drill down on J6. Drill down on Fauci and COVID. One subpoena after another. And when they don't show up, this is the point of what I'm going to say. Steve has put himself out there and he's now going to prison for 4 months. When they don't show up, they go to prison, right? This is the point now. This is the new paradigm that the Democrats have created and instituted. And it is now up to this movement, MAGA, to ensure that the Republicans do the same back. And then after 4 years of that, perhaps they'll think twice, then de-escalate. Then reduce the temperature, reduce the tenor, and return to something approaching normality. But the Democrats, if their lesson is that they can misabuse the state when it's in their hands, and yet Republicans should act like Mother Teresa, the lesson is that they learn is that they can and will do so again with impunity. And that, I think, is my substantial takeaway of the historical events that have taken place today. As I say, Washington Times say that Steve Bannon is a political prisoner, and they are absolutely correct.
No, you're so right, and he's one of many, certainly the highest profile, but I think you've hit the nail on the head. The difference in what we're looking for when it comes to accountability, what we've seen for years from these feckless Republicans, is just sort of these nebulous terms. Oh, the socialists, the communists, the far left, these people who they don't want to put a face to the name. The people who are destroying this country, the people who are throwing Steve in prison, the people who are coming after this show, they have names, they have addresses, right? They can be subpoenaed. And that is, I think, the fundamental difference that this show has pushed for years, right? That it's not just some monolithic term, oh, the globalist ruling class. That is comprised of very specific people, right? The very same people who are not just going to give us the keys to the kingdom once President Trump wins again, but we can go after them. And you're so right. If there can even be anything chalked up to a silver lining in all of this, at least we now know, right? Projection, right? That's the left strategy. At least we now know what to do when they defy our subpoenas. And something tells me the American prison system will be a little bit fuller with America's greatest traitors. It really, I think, was an interesting moment when you had those crazy deranged protesters today screaming traitor at Steve. And it sort of made me think about how, as you well know, Steve calls his house in DC the Breitbart Embassy, because they feel like they're in a foreign capital, because they're one of the few media outlets and people who actually put the interests of the American people first. And I said, you know what? You are right. Steve is a traitor to the deep state. He's a traitor to the way that politics is typically run in this country. He is a traitor to the ruling class. And thank God we have him. Thank God he's still here. But you can tell that is why they're going after him. So if this is the rules that they want to play by, then we'll play by them. But it's not just happening here. It's obviously happening across the globe. And you can add on what you were going to say in a sec. But if you want to loop this more broadly, why they're so scared, not just of what's going on here in the United States, but in France particularly, the protests that are going there, the election results. Can you walk us through all that?
Yeah, sure. I want to come back to your point about saying that Steve is a traitor to, and he is in a certain sense. He's a class traitor. He's a guy who was actually in the heart of the Navy, in the Pentagon in the 80s. He was then went in to Goldman Sachs and was made, I think, vice president within a couple of years. He knows how the system works, and he was very successful in that, right? And he used the knowledge and the insights that he saw now to conceptually equip the whole of the MAGA movement to fight against the very things in which he first, the enterprises in which he first found success. So, of course, he is a traitor, not to the Republic, not to America, But to the institutions like Goldman Sachs, like the Pentagon, the heart of the military-industrial complex, I'm sure that there's an element of the antipathy and the antipathy that they feel towards him is part of that. That this guy was one of them, and he broke ranks. Prometheus, like, if I might say that. Look quickly, because I know you've got Tiffany and Mike waiting to come on. Look, there's been huge news in France. Basically, my takeaway is this. For President Macron, 3 weeks ago, after the results of the European elections, saw that there'd been a huge movement towards the national rally, and his pitch was, the European vote thing, the European elections, that was a protest vote. If I confront the country with the possibility that these guys, whom the establishment had termed far right, they're not far right, but they decreed, they had pronounced these people far right. If I give them an ultimatum, an up-down vote, they're going to come back into the fold. Natalie, not only did that not happen, the National Rally increased its vote from about 32.2 to 33.1, just slightly under 1%, over a 3-week period. And that is in the face of a colossal propaganda campaign. You know, you've seen this in the newspapers yourself, right? You had threats from the European Commission to impose sanctions on France. You had threats coming out that the financial markets were going to do like a Liz Truss on the 1 month British Prime Minister. They were doing Liz Truss on Marine Le Pen's government, which will be headed presumably by Jordan Bardella. So the French people have just been bombarded with a fear campaign on behalf of the establishment. And here's the takeaway: it didn't work. In fact, it was counterproductive. So look, we're going to see how the next round is on Sunday, the 7th of July. I think only 75 or so seats, because it's a one seat system, like in America. Not like it in America. It's each constituency has only one member, and there I think 75 got over the 50% threshold, and the rest are going to go to the second round, and that's where the alliances, the left, are already forming their alliances, so that those in the left is saying, the United Left Front is saying it's going to drop out where it appeared in third or lower place, to give the second party a stronger chance in campaign against the National Rally. So we're going to see how France now decides it wants to go forward when it just simply has a dual candidate presentation. And I think that's where the intention is. But it's an astonishing result for the nationalists. As I say, they're not far right. They are pretty much old school 1970s era socialist. They're protectionist on all the metrics. The one thing that distinguishes them, Natalie, from the elites that are driving Europe into the ground elsewhere, is their absolutely implacable stand on immigration. That's the one thing that stops them from being called far left, and insists that they have the designation far right. It's the immigration issue. It's always the immigration issue. That issue for our globalist elites is existential. I don't know why, but they are determined to bring as many people from the third world into the West as possible. That is existential for them, and only we the people can stop that. Thanks, Natalie.
Ben, thank you so much for joining us. If people want to follow you, stay up to date with all of your analysis in between shows, where can they go to do all that?
On Getter at Harnwell, which is my surname. Thanks so much, Natalie. Catch you tomorrow. God bless.
Of course. Thank you so much for joining us. I think we got to bring back some of Steve's old sayings. What is it? We're blowing through the firewall. Remember that one for some of you OG War Room Posse members? We will keep his spirit alive. I guess also, I don't even know if we've announced this yet, but I am going to be taking over the 6 p.m. show. So this edition, the one that's aired on Frank's Speech and Rumble and Getter. We have that rotating cast of hosts for the rest of the morning show, and the 5 p.m. show I'll be jumping in on an as-need basis, but I realize I don't think anyone announced that. So just for some programming updates, I know we don't usually give you updates here in the War Room, so coherently we're a little all over the place, but for at least the next 4 months, you can regularly see me here in the 6 p.m. hour. I'm honored to be starting off my stint as the guest host for the 6 p.m. hour by also having Tiffany Justice, the co-founder of Moms for Liberty, on. Now, Tiffany, I want to give you a chance to, of course, just react to what we saw happening with Steve today, but I think your perspective is particularly unique because you have really weaponized, and I use that word in its truest sense, the passion, the anger, really the righteous indignation of moms across this country into a true, raw, grassroots political powerhouse. Very similar, and again, I think, to what we've done here in the War Room. So from your perspective, looking at what happened, with Steve today, I'm sure the audience would love to hear your thoughts.
First of all, I want to say congratulations to you for taking over the 6 p.m. hour. I think it's wonderful. And the fact that Steve gave that to you, obviously, he thinks a lot of you and the work that you do, Natalie. So congratulations for that. I have no doubt you're going to do a wonderful job.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Today, it was hard to watch Steve last night talk about going to prison and to see it happen today. I think it's a sad moment for our country. I do think the American government has been weaponized against the people. And you're right. We are grassroots, Moms for Liberty, true grassroots. I think that's why Steve has been such an amazing friend to us, because he really does understand what we're doing, because he's done the very same thing. I know Steve is tough. And, I told him that we've got lots of moms and dads and community members at Moms for Liberty praying for him. And of course, he said, you need to pray for our enemies. And that's what he always says. And he means it. There is no doubt. I saw him say victory or death. We are at a real crisis point in our country. What we saw the other night was an American president who is barely able to put sentences together. And I thought President Trump did a wonderful job of being compassionate and kind, but also setting, some hope for the future for Americans to see that there is someone that can lead us going forward. And, I credit Steve a lot for the work that he's done to help certainly President Trump get elected, and then to continue to tell the truth through the past 4 years of Joe Biden and the lies and the manipulations that we've seen from the left. So a sad day, but I also think that different things happen for reasons, and this is a time for leadership. And so all of the people that have worked on War Room, who have had roles before, this is your opportunity to step up and lead for all of us, really, and certainly the moms and dads on the ground. And I know that's exactly what Steve expects of us, to lead, to not back down, to continue to fight. And that's exactly what we're going to do.
Yeah, I think you can draw the parallel between the 2016 election with Trump, where you saw, the far left, the Democrats, get so galvanized, so radicalized, where they knocked doors, like Steve always says. He handed it to them for that the midterm victory in 2018, because there was a reason, there was a cause for them to rally around, which frankly, I don't understand the miscalculation on the part of the deep state and the globalist ruling class in going after Steve, because they know there's going to be a significant pushback, although I guess they think that with their Praetorian Guard and having people like Joe Biden and Merrick Garland and Lisa Monaco and positions of power, that they can quash any dissent, which is why it's so imperative that this War Room posse, that your followers continue to speak up to show them that they can't get away with it. But just, as we approach November and elections, not just the presidential level, I know you guys are focusing on school boards and all that. How do you think the cultural issues are playing out? To me, it seems like, I guess we just finished, Pride Month, and we all saw the clips on Twitter of what's going on. But, when you talk to your members of Moms for Liberty, what's kind of the feeling, the boots on the ground there?
We're energized. Moms and dads are energized. Finally, America is seeing the truth about what's happening across the country. San Francisco Pride Parade was yesterday. The images that Americans saw on their, in their social media feeds, on their TV screens, were shocking, horrible. Kids watching adults urinating on each other on the street. This is shocking, shocking stuff. And so I think people are finally waking up. And that's why I said it's a real turning point at this time in our country to decide which way do we go forward. Our moms and dads are really energized, and we are fighting at every level of government to defend our parental rights. So we only endorse in school board races, but here's my message to elected officials. Our moms and dads have largely not been political in the past. In fact, we took a large portion of our membership and compared it against the voter rolls, and what we found was the fact that many of them hadn't been registered to vote. So as much as we're trying to change people's minds, this is also about energizing the people who agree with us already, getting them out to vote at every level. And so to candidates, my message is this: moms and dads want to know that you are going to fight on the front lines for parental rights. We want you to fight for public education, to teach kids how to read, for choice about where our kids go to school. Trust us as parents to make those types of decisions, and tell us that you're going to stand between us and the government in your elected capacity in order to safeguard our parental rights. These are not rights the government gives us, and they're not rights that they can take away. But we need strong elected officials to help us to defend them. So if you're running for office right now, make sure you're saying, I'm the parental rights candidate. Parents, you should be voting for me. I promise you that's really going to help you in your races. There is no doubt about it, because that, Natalie, is what parents really care about. We're concerned about the future of our country. We're watching our open borders and watching as women and girls and moms and daughters are not safe in this country. My goodness, how scary that is. But also our grocery bills. My grocery bill, Natalie, is like twice what it used to be. I'm raising 4 kids. And so the pressure is coming from so many different directions on the American people right now. And, you say the deep state didn't know what they were doing with Steve. This is war, to quote Andrew Breitbart. We are at war. And they did know what they were doing because Steve is powerful and people listen to him. And I know the power of Steve because I come on this show, and after I'm on here, we get new chapters starting. We get donations that come in. We get more comments and questions on the work that we're doing, more support. And so to your viewers, Steve and Natalie, I say thank you. Thank you for being the true army on the ground, supporting the people who are doing work and helping to throw your hat in and to help us to do the work we need to do to get voters out in order to change the direction of America.
Well, thank you. It's certainly all due to Steve. I'm honored to be part of the next man up. It's, I guess, his new mantra for the summer. But Tiffany, I know you guys probably have some events coming up. If people want to get involved, follow you, tell us about how they can do all that.
Thank you for that. Yeah, we do have some exciting events coming up. So I'll be in Milwaukee with our whole team. We're doing a convention event. You have all these elected leaders in one place who are doing really great things in their states in order to advance leadership and America and our fundamental rights and freedoms. And so we'll be doing a town hall on July 16th in Milwaukee at the Bradley Symphony Center from 2 to 4:30. We're going to have governors, AGs, some legislators there. Kevin Roberts of the Heritage Foundation is going to moderate with me. We have some amazing sponsors: Public Square, Heritage, Conservative Partnership Institute, Young America's Foundation. So very excited about that event. Make sure if you're in Milwaukee, you check us out and you come to that event. It's free, open to everybody. And then we have our national summit coming up at the end of August. And that is a very special event. Natalie, I think we had 5 presidential candidates that had attended our event. We've, of course, extended an invitation to President Biden if he'd like to join us, but President Trump sure will be, and we'll be hearing from him and how he feels about parents as we move forward into this election. We'll also have some really amazing speakers who are going to talk about how they're making change happen on the ground, and then a whole host of breakout sessions to put tools and resources and information in your toolkit in order to be able to be a great advocate. So go to our website, momsforliberty.org, check out the summit, see the other resources we have available. And of course, if you feel like you want to donate, we can need the help to get people to the event, to Summit. As I said, it's been a real crunch for our moms in order to get to Summit. We try to give scholarships to people. So if you give right now to the Summit, that's what we're going to be using it for, to help moms to come to DC and to celebrate. We'll also, one last thing, March for Kids on August 31st. This is the first ever March on Washington for children. And it's just a really important way for a bunch of different people, different coalition partners to come together to put kids first in America again.
Lauren Posse, if you're looking a way to become the next man or next woman up, I think you just got 3 very good suggestions. Tiffany, thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure we'll see you back here soon. Have a good one. Thank you. It wouldn't be an episode of The War Room without the one and only Mike Lindell, who has some on what is an otherwise dark day, some good, non-lumpy news for us. Mike, if you want to let it rip, as Steve would say.
Right. Well, Natalie, I want to say welcome to Frank's speech. Tonight is Rudy Giuliani right after the show here. He's debuting on frankspeech.com, everybody, and then followed by Lou Dobbs and myself later in the night. And I talked to Steve yesterday, everybody, for about a half hour, and he said, Mike, take care of the War Room Posse. On My Pillow, we're so proud to be the War Room's one of the biggest sponsors. So what we're doing is we're giving away with any purchase today, you guys. You're going to get, we're bringing back the Revival pillow free with no purchase. I mean, no purchase necessary. I want to get you all to the website to check out all the great special. So you're getting this pillow here, the Revival, the Revival flag pillow, and for absolutely no purchase. And if you go there, if you go to the website, we have the 1998 Queen My Pillows. There it is. That's a War Room exclusive 4th of July special. The premium My Pillows, King or Queen, 1998. We're going to run it all week long or extend it here. And so go to the website. There it is. You get the free pillow with no purchase necessary. And there's our mattress topper. That for $149.98 free set of percale sheets. That commercial actually starts this week, but at the War Room Posse, you get it with free shipping. And so,
Mike, we've got to bounce. Yep. I know the posse's going to pile in, get those pillows, and of course, promo code War Room. Mike, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for everything you've done to keep this show running. We appreciate it. And War Room Posse, after we come back from commercial break, we're going to be playing the first half of Steve's, I believe he called it, bench press interview with ABC's Vaughn Hilliard. We'll play the second half of it tomorrow, but you got to stay tuned. You got to watch it. It's amazing, as you can imagine. Yeah, throws down on Vaughn Hilliard's a nice guy, but in deep fashion, he gives him a shellacking, the words you would say. We will be opening the next block with that, and I will see you guys tomorrow.
All this nonsense, all this spin, they can't handle the truth.
War Room Battleground with Stephen K. Bannon.
Monday, you are slated to head to prison here. For you, what does going to prison mean for you, but also the MAGA movement?
Well, I think for me, it's just like, I've got a picture right there of my Navy ship. In the 20s, I spent my time on a Navy destroyer in the North Arabian Sea, Persian Gulf, Western Pacific. In my 70s, I'll spend it, part of it in a federal prison, right? And it's just the same. I'm still defending my country. I'm still defending the constitutional republic I took an oath to back in my early 20s. So it doesn't faze me at all. It's a part of the process. We're clearly at a political war in this country. And our enemies have weaponized the Justice Department across the board, whether it's bankruptcies or, getting people, throw them out of the bar or deplatform them, or in President Trump, in my case, and Peter Navarro, and a couple others, to actually send them to prison. So it doesn't faze me at all. The show and War Room will be even more powerful when we're there. So I think for the MAGA movement, it's a wake-up call.
What does your show look like the next 4 months before the election?
We're going to have a host. We're going to have like 20 co-hosts. It'll be bigger. Look, our phrase is next man up, right? You can't depend upon Trump to always be there. You can't Tucker Carlson, Alex Jones, Steve Bannon. This is a populist movement, and people have to step up. The reason the show's been so not just popular, but powerful today. So people have to step up. So the show will be even bigger, even better. I'll be able to, with my First Amendment rights, you can't run a business from prison, and that's obvious, but I'll be able to, like Peter was, talk to people on the outside, do interviews, make sure that my team is going along the right path as far as the media goes and as far as what's happening. It's obviously after Thursday night going to be dramatically different than what everybody envisioned. So I think for the MAGA movement, if my going to prison is what it took to wake up Congress to really, hey, what's going on here, and to have the Speaker of the House on the BLAG to vote 3-2 to rescind the J6 committee, and it looks like taking action, including the inherent contempt proposal that may be brought up on Monday, to actually go on offense to defend the American people against an out-of-control Justice Department, then my going to prison is well worth it. So it doesn't affect me at all.
Do you plan to make calls out of prison, contribute to the show?
No, you can't. I don't think you can make calls out of the show. I want no mail, no, except my papers, but no mail from the audience. I tell people, no mail. I'm not going to read your letters. No visits. I work 18 to 20 hours a day right now in a pretty monkish existence, focused on just growing the MAGA movement and victory for our cause and our movement and for President Trump. And so I'll have a prison job, and I'll have things I have to do, just like on a Navy ship I had things to do. So part of my day will be doing what I have to do in prison to make sure I meet the rules and regulations. And the other time I'll be 100% working to make sure President Trump's reelected. Look, Merrick Garland's in Biden White House, the timing of this, it's no coincidence. The timing of this, the federal appeals court that we gave and we argued in front of in November, a pretty straightforward argument. They took 7 or 8 months to come back, right? They could have returned this in 30 days. They could have returned it in 60 days. They waited. This thing was totally set up at the entirety to make sure that I was off air, right, personally, and not there to really talk to President Trump in the run-up to the election. But here's what they don't understand. We only get stronger with this. We're not going to get weaker. We're a populist movement. In this MAGA, and particularly the War Room, we took down a sitting Speaker of the House for the first time in history. We took down Mitch McConnell and made him break his pick on the Ukraine vote, which he stepped aside. And then we took down the entire leadership of the RNC within 100 days earlier this year. So this show is like a military command center. We have an army of the awakened. We're going to raise 100 or 200,000 people, not dollars, people, to be all over the 2024 election. And it's not going to stop us one whit. They're only going to make us stronger and more determined.
If you had just complied with the January 6th Select Committee subpoena and testified and provided documents to them, you would not be going to prison right now.
That's
Why
correct.
not just comply?
But first off, I did my advice of my counsel when President Trump exerted executive privilege said you got to follow the president, and I followed my counsel, and that's one of the big arguments.
Everybody else besides you and Peter Navarro, though, went. Some even pled the fifth. Why not just plead the fifth?
Because first off, so my counsel told me, hey, since the president exerted executive privilege, you just stand down. But number two is also, and this is what's happened the last day, it was not a legitimately conceived committee.
The Republicans could have had members on that committee if they so had decided.
But hang on, Vaughn. We had 2 members. Remember, every other committee, and this is why it gets back to what's happening today in the polling. The reason Watergate galvanized the nation, the reason Iran-Contra galvanized the nation, they were set up that you have a ranking member and you have minority counsel. And that minority counsel gets all the evidence and can cross-examine witnesses. This is why Watergate was so galvanizing. This is why Iran-Contra is so galvanizing. Nancy Pelosi set up a whole new system of Jim Banks and Jim Jordan were supposed to be there, and they're going to have a minority counsel, and she says no because they were insurrectionists. And the reason she deemed them insurrectionists, they were prepared to argue in the House of Representatives on January 6th that they couldn't certify the Biden electors. She deemed that those 2 guys are insurrectionists. They couldn't be on it. And no minority counsel. Kevin McCarthy said no way, and they picked Cheney and Kinzinger, who have been turfed out of the Republican Party since then. And this is why, think about it. And they had an ABC TV producer come in and do it. So you had crazy talk by Cassie Hutchinson and all these people. He's choking people. No cross-examination and no evidence. The American people got bored. And how do I know they got bored? The evidence shows me that. On the day before, on the eve of the Biden fiasco debate, the Washington Post put out a poll that said ask the American people in swing states, who do you think who do you entrust to defend democracy more, Donald Trump or Joe Biden? This is the centerpiece of the Biden's campaign. Every night on MSNBC, I just get democracy, democracy, democracy. People view Trump as a better guardian of democracy, including swing state independent voters by 13%. It means that Nancy Pelosi's thing had no resonance. And the reason it had no resonance, there was no tension, no drama in it. There's not that tension you get.
There was a lot that was revealed from the January 6th Select Committee's effort. And I don't think that you or anybody would dispute that there was necessary to investigate what led to the attack there that day.
Hang on,
There was a bipartisan commission that could have been Republicans did not agree to that.
Hold on, hang on. What do you mean the bipartisan?
And ultimately, the January 6th Select Committee, they did subpoena you. It was a congressional subpoena.
Hang on. I've been the first person in the loudest voice that we should adjudicate January 6th. When we say adjudicate January 6th, I want to adjudicate January 6th.
You said that all those 1,400 individuals who were convicted should be freed.
Should be free. There may be a couple of 3 on the violent side that should be determined, but by and large, they should be freed, and they should be freed the first day. But hang on, hang on for a second.
If they allowed you to defy a congressional subpoena,
it's an illegitimate subpoena.
If they allowed all of those individuals, it was a congressional subpoena.
Vaughn, hang on. The jury found me guilty. Remember, my judge said at the trial I couldn't put on a defense. A jury found me guilty when I wasn't able to put on defense of advice of counsel. I wasn't put on defense. The Judge Nichols, actually asked my attorney. My attorney goes, well, in the pretrial, he says, well, hang on, you've taken away all of Bannon's defenses. Why are we even having a trial? And Nichols goes, I'm asking you that. Why are we having a trial? Because all my defenses were limited. This is the basis of my appeal. But hang on for a second. We need to adjudicate January 6th. I am the biggest advocate of having not Loudermilk, but the Speaker of the House do that today. And if it's not done today, it's got to be done in January 2025. We must get to the bottom. And the Democrats should have a ranking member, and the Democrats should have minority counsel. If that's Dan Goldman, put your best lawyers on it. We have to get all the evidence out about the federal government's involvement in this. DHS, FBI, why?
There's not a single individual who is a federal agent who has been convicted or even accused.
But we don't know who this is. But by the Chris Ray will never answer that question. That question is never answered by Chris Ray.
All the video, the surveillance footage that has been released, nobody.
What are you talking about?
To identify one individual.
Hang on for a second. Hang on for a second. People are talking about federal agents all over the place. Let's just get. And by the way, people randomly looking at videos. You guys are all in for process. I'm in for process. I have advocated to have a rebooted January 6th committee. There will be no question of whether the Democrats get a ranking member and the Democrats get a minority counsel. The Democrats get to see all the evidence and the Democrats get to cross-examine witnesses. It's the only way we're going to get to the bottom of it. And people should understand, we're going to get to the bottom of it. We're going to find out exactly what happened on J6, Nancy Pelosi's role in it, why the National Guard was not called up. Chris Miller, in his book, who is acting Secretary of Defense, talks about a meeting in the Pentagon, talks about a meeting in the Oval Office where he proposed to Trump, and Trump said, yeah, I want 10,000 guys here. They had footage the other day, and maybe it wasn't perfect footage about Nancy Pelosi, but you never gotten to the bottom of the question about the National Guard. We must adjudicate fully January 6th. I want to adjudicate 2020.
I want to look forward to 2024 and what comes and where we go. But on the January 6th front, I was going to get this at the end, but I want to get at this now here. By not going before the January 6th select committee, there was a lot of questions that you did not answer. A week before the election, you said he's going to sit right there and say that you said on a week before the election, you said he's going to sit right there and say they stole it there. Why should folks even trusted
hang on a second.
The fact when Donald Trump says that now, what you guys suggest now, why should folks suggest this is not just a play?
Hang on for a second, because I know this is MSNBC, and I know you'll give me full vetting. The context that's very important. A guy, and I'm going to throw out a random name, that maybe comes on MSNBC a couple of times, Mark Elias. Mark Elias put out a document called the Transition Integrity Project, and he put that out in July of 2020. And what Mark Elias said is that, hey, as we go through this, the mail-in ballots are going to be critical. And so on election night at 11 o'clock, when Donald Trump's winning by a landslide, do not panic. And we don't want people coming in rioting. We don't want people there. Just stick with the program. When all the ballots are counted, all the ballots, didn't say legitimate votes, certifiable votes, and when everything is counted, I think Joe Biden will be named the winner in 10 days, basically the Saturday after it. This is Mark Elias. That was taken from, I went around the country with Raheem Kassam and Bill McGinley's now at the RSC. We started in New York, and because of COVID, a lot of it had to be by Zoom, and that's taken from a Zoom call. I went around to tell Republicans, hey, wake up. They are telling you exactly how they're going to steal this. They're telling you it's coming through the mail-in ballots, and particularly places like Pennsylvania and others where this thing. And so not only did I tell the campaign, I was adamant about, and I never really made contact with President Trump, but saying publicly everywhere, including on War Room, at 11 o'clock at night, when he's up he's up overwhelmingly. He has no official capacity. The Associated Press hasn't called it, hasn't been certified, but he should step up there and say, hey, quite frankly, I won this. Watch these mail-in ballots. And I'm adamant, if he had done that...
Joe Biden did not declare victory that night. Nobody usually declares victory on election night. Because you understood, you're just acknowledging that you understood that the mail-in ballots, that process was going to take a while.
No, stop. Hang on. The mail-in ballot process, first of all, the president can stand up at any time and say, hey, looking at this right now, I'm saying I won.
Doing it right now.
What?
Just this month, in Detroit, up on a stage, you said that there is no chance that the Democrats are going to win this.
No chance.
If they declare that they do,
they're stealing it, 100%.
But you know that elections in the United States are close. You know that there is a very reasonable chance that the Democrats win the White House again. Why go sow that distrust?
Von Hilliard.
Why go and sow that distrust in the
Because Von Hilliard, I knew that Thursday night was going to happen. How can you sit there unrelated to the facts? I sat there because we know and we follow every day that Joe Biden is feeble, that Joe Biden's enfeebled. And MSNBC,
that doesn't mean that the American public may not vote for him again.
Are you kidding me? Have you seen the polls? Have you seen the New York Times? Have you seen MSNBC? Tell that to MSNBC.
Evidence of voter fraud. That is not evidence.
I didn't say that. No. I sat there and said there is no chance the Democrats can win this. And then a couple of days later, Joe Biden, who's been protected by the New York Times, protected by MSNBC, comes up and humiliates the nation. And now 69%, if I believe the poll came today, thinks that he should remove himself from the ballot. I sat there at the time and said, there is no chance that Joe Biden and the Democrats can win this. And at the time, the polling for Trump was very strong in battleground states and crosstab demographics. And so then on Thursday night, in front of the whole world, that was revealed. You should be saying, Steve, how are you so pressing about this? Because I'm telling you, brother, on your channel, which when we watch MSC, as you know here, so we're sitting here watching when they came back, it was like sitting Shiva. It was like a Christian wake. Rachel Maddow and the entire team is gobsmacked about what happened.
I don't know what the point is exactly.
The point is that that's why I said that in Detroit, that it is zero chance the Democrats can win this.
Zero chance, though.
It's zero
chance. That's how elections work. Voters go vote. There's not 0%.
Let me repeat this.
So by sowing distrust in
it's not showing
process in the United States, there's repercussions.
I am so. Hold it. The election process in this country, Trump. Let me make sure MSNBC and my man Vaughn here understands this. The 2020 election was stolen. Donald Trump won that election.
If you guys had such evidence, though, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
What are you talking about? We never got, hang on, we never got...
We would not be having this conversation.
Vaughn, we never got standing. There was never an evidentiary hearing whatsoever in all those 60 or 70, and you know this, 60 or 70 cases that went to court. Not one evidentiary hearing. Let me repeat this for the MSNBC, and here's the thing.
Yeah.
For having the entire media apparatus against us, right? Having the House, the Senate, the presidency, all the media apparatus, NBC News, ABC, CNN, the New York Times, Washington Post. How is it, Fox News never did this, Newsmax, how is it that this little show out of this kind of gonzo situation now has almost 50% of the American people that think that Joe Biden is illegitimate, including, I think, 70% of Republicans? The reason is, over time, people have seen as what's come out, and they have huge questions on 2020. Back to Mark Elias's, the Transition Integrity Project. So let me repeat this. The Democrats have no ability to win this unless they cheat.
So this month, you said this, quote, if they steal this election and they fully intend to steal it, this republic ends. Are you prepared to fight? Are you prepared to give it all? Are you prepared to leave it all on the battlefield?
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's very simple. Victory or death. They can't win this election.
100%.
Those were your words.
There are my words.
To a crowd.
That is my word.
What is your end game?
Victory or death of this republic. If we don't win, first of all, they shred the Constitution. It is the death of the constitutional American republic we know, and now it'll be more of an imperial project that will go forward, and that is why we're not going to lose. What is your
end game? Are you concerned about violence ahead in this country in November?
No, not at all. Dude, we're winning. Why am I concerned about violence? We're winning everywhere.
Victory or death.
Victory or death of the republic. Victory or death is a famous saying from Scipio Africanus, Lord Nelson, Colonel Travis at the Alamo. It is something to jack people up, and yes, I'm in the business of jacking people up.
You told our friend Isaac Arnstorff from the Washington Post, quote, "We have to rebuild the institutions. That is not my job. We're not going to be rebuilding any time in the foreseeable future. We're going to be taking things apart."
You just saw the Supreme Court just ruled our long project. And by the way, I want to compliment Chris Hayes, who had the best comment. He said yesterday when they had the Chevron deference overruled, 6-3, that at the same time they gave a thumbs down on the stay of my thing, and he said the Supreme Court said, "Hey, Steve, thanks for all your previous work on the administrative state. We got it from here." And it's actually a brilliant statement.
What should the American public expect when we say taking things apart, bringing down the administrative state? In actual detailed terms, what does that actually look like in 2025?
The administrative state, we're going to have, I think, a three-prong attack, okay? One, you have what we call Project 2025, or many others. CRA has one, American First Legal. So there's 5 or 6 institutions that have been built up over the last couple of years that are more MAGA than they are traditional Republican. And one of the things all of these are converging on, in part of the executive part, is this concept that we've had a Leviathan that has grown up that's post-constitutional. It is never the framers never considered it, and what it's not just the alphabet agencies, but how the cabinet officials have now taken on much bigger purview. Remember, the authorization process that they're supposed to be authorized every 5 years, like you do an annual defense authorization, hasn't been done in decades, and some for the FBI and DOJ. So they've taken on and metastasized with the alphabet agencies. They have this massive federal bureaucracy that nobody intended. And it's one of the people talk about limited government. People talk about cutting spending. You can't do that till you actually get to the Leviathan, the administrative state. And so a three-prong approach. One of those parts is the federal courts and what takes on, and particularly the Supreme Court. And remember, when we defeated Hillary Clinton and her selection for the Supreme Court was, I'm going to throw out a random name, Merrick Garland, right? He was replaced when Trump won by a random name, Neil Gorsuch. And Neil Gorsuch is the theoretician of the deconstruction of the administrative state from a legal and judiciary point of view. That's why yesterday was so what people should see is that the federal government is going to shrink. And how's it going to shrink? Not on a percentage basis and not by firing individual bureaucrats. It's going to do less things. It's going to actually get out of being involved in every aspect of people's business. You're going to get a government that kind of comes back and we can afford. So you don't run $2 trillion deficits every year. The way you have to do it is by shrinking the federal government. Now, we're not libertarians. We're not saying to say you should have no government, right? Like the Grover Norquist and those people said for years, you should have a government that's in the bottom of a tub and you wash away. But we believe the government's got to be shrunken pretty dramatically, and that's why you have these projects from the executive branch, and President Trump will appoint some of these people. He's going to pick his own people with some of these people. You're going to have legislatively, you're going to have Congress come in and start in the appropriations process to start to take programs down programmatically, and you're going to have a three-pronged attack in the courts. And so we are going to take on the Leviathan. Right? We're going to deconstruct the administrative state to get something that is appropriate for people to like to live in liberty and not in tyranny, and as importantly, something we can afford.